Absolutely. So for those that don't know me, my name's Tim Rylatt, and I'm the Managing Director of UK Growth Coach. That's a business coaching firm that's based in Wivelsfield, and I've been in that industry sector for about 12 years. I've worked with about 200 different companies, all different scales and industry sectors. And what I'm going to share with you today are some principles that are pretty consistent across whatever sector you happen to be in. During my time, I've won the best client results for my region 5 years running. So hopefully that gives you a bit of faith that what I'm going to share is worth knowing. And it's also, I think, worth knowing that not only am I a coach, but I also am a director in 2 separate marketing agencies. What that means is that I'm actually a business owner. I'm not just an advisor. I do actually have staff. I do have premises. I do have all the hassles and headaches that everybody running a company has in addition. So hopefully it gives you a bit of faith that it's not just theory, it's also pragmatic as well. And the final point is I've written 2 books. The reason for pointing that out is you never know who's going to buy them when you mention them. So that's my cheeky pitch on the front end. And it's also just to point out the second one of those I wrote with Henry, who's also speaking today, and that's all about marketing strategy. So I just want to start out by a bit of context, which is the title of the session today is all about improving business efficiency, about doing things better, about achieving more with less. And the reason I'm focusing in on that is the picture of the firefighter is just an example of what most business owners experience, either perpetually or from time to time, and certainly during the COVID crisis and what's been going on, it has been the case that really what we've been doing is putting out short-term fires non-stop. And the problem is with that is, firstly, it means you're not actually taking a look at how the business is running overall. You're just trying to solve problems from moment to moment. It's a very short-term mindset. And the purpose of today, I'd just like to just take a breath, just put aside whatever else you've got coming up today, this week, this month, whatever, and just take a look and say, how might this work for me across the 4 presentations? And the key point is that profit efficiency is different to operational efficiency. This isn't about doing the individual jobs better. It's about how those different jobs interlace together and how that creates efficiency from top to bottom in terms of your company outcomes. So to do that, I'm going to be talking about some things called profit levers. And profit levers are really the areas of strategy within your company and the related metrics that actually change the level of profit and cash flow and all the things that you want to have as an outcome of your business. I just want to show a little bit of simple math here. This isn't rocket science, and it's certainly not going to challenge you on a mathematical level, but there is a principle within it I want you to get. So if in a business you've got one department that's performing at 100%, one person doing a good job, and then you've got another person doing a good job, and you've got another person doing a good job, the outcome for that company, of those 3 divisions working in harmony, will be 100% of whatever that outcome is going to be. Now, I know that's not rocket science. You probably expected a bit more from today, so let me take it forwards. The second part is that most companies, when the business owner is really heavily involved operationally, what happens is they tend to look at their role and their direct influence, and they say, how can I do better? And what they do is they throw heart and soul into that. And I maybe say, I'm going to try and do 90% better on my part this month, this quarter, or whatever it's going to be, whilst actually not taking too much overview on how the other areas of the business are performing and allowing them to tick on at the same level they were. Now, the point about this is no matter how much effort they put in, 90% uplift would be astounding for any area of a business. The outcome, even if they were successful, would still only be the impact of 1. Whereas if they take on the role of being the business owner, and actually their responsibility then is to enable all the different departments and all of the different individuals to perform better, what happens is that whilst there's only in principle a 0.9 improvement, the equivalent of in the second column, because it's compounded, you get a better outcome. And what I'm going to show you within this presentation today are 9 different areas of your business that if you multiply them together, if you improve each one by a modest amount, it makes a substantial difference to the outcome for your company, because compounding is more powerful than one person in isolation trying to address one area of the company and really overhaul it massively. It's easier to do lots of small things and make them lace together than it is to fundamentally revolutionize one part of your business. So What are the 9 profit levers I'm talking about? Well, the objective of all of them is to improve profits. And very simply, that's a nice outcome. Everybody in business got into business because they wanted to make profit, unless they're in a charity. And one of the main ways you can do that is simply to do more of what you're doing and get paid more for doing that. Now, within there, there's an element which is to do with greater market share. And the 3 areas that influence that are growing your client base. Here we're talking about marketing and sales processes, actually enhancing the way that you connect, engage, and actually convert prospects coming through to deal with you as orders and customers. The second is, all of that section is about winning the first order. The next section then is, okay, 1 order is great. Actually, 1 order every month or every year, or whatever the right frequency for your type of industry is better. Lifetime value from a customer is much more valuable than 1 transaction from each brand new cold prospect. And the reason being is, every time you win a prospect, you had to sell a prospect. Every time you have a customer, you had to market to them. Every time you actually needed to communicate out. You don't tend to win 100% of the opportunities you get with cold prospects, but very often you will win 100% of the opportunities from the customers that are happy with what they got first time round. So it's much more leverage to look at lifetime value and repeat sales and how you can move that up than it is to constantly cold hunt a person for the first time every time. And the third element is diversification on your service range. And by that, I mean dealing with the same customers, but actually meeting more of their needs. So understanding what else they buy when they're not buying what you currently provide. What other problems do they have? What other solutions could you offer? And how can you solve more of those problems, either on 1 transaction or throughout their lifetime? So simple examples of this might be, if you're installing a bathroom, well, most people's bathroom within the space of a year actually would benefit from a full and deep steam clean. So why not offer that as a bolt-on? Or any other secondary transaction or upsell, cross-sell that you can think of that's genuinely going to solve a problem for your prospects. So those are the first 3. And the second area is to do with what we call market penetration. And for this, what we're doing is now diversifying the client types. So you've got a range of services or products that you offer out right at the moment, and it may be that you're only serving part of the market with them, but actually other people similar to your current client base actually have similar problems that, with a minor adaptation or a slightly different message to presented across, you could be solving those problems for those people too, with relatively minimal adjustment. Now, there's an important point here between points 3 and point 4 on this diagram. When you are trying to sell something that your customers are already familiar with buying, so an existing product or service, and you're dealing with people that you already deal with, the risk factor for your business is only 1, because it's what you're already doing. When you introduce either a new service range to an existing client base or a new client type to an existing service or product type, the risk factor jumps to 4. So just fundamentally, doing something new for the first time is more risky. But the point I want to make on this is, I'm not recommending you do the 2 together other than in extreme circumstances. Because when you introduce new services to new client types, the risk factor jumps to 14. And that's why so many startup brand new businesses fail, because they are new to the market, new service, new audience, and it's very hard to get off the ground when you're working away. Much better to go with at least 1 known factor for your company. And so I'm just separating out 3 and 4 and advising against doing a combination of 3 and 4. If you want to know where that comes from, it comes from a model called Ansoff's matrix, which is a pretty well-known marketing model, if you want to explore that in more detail. Now, the 5th point is around value acceptance. Even if you didn't do any more, or didn't deal with any more clients, and you didn't do any more orders for them, you can still increase the amount of profit you make simply by pushing up your prices. In fact, fundamentally, one of the fastest ways to impact your profit is to move your prices up. And one aspect that's important in this is that, depending on where your gross margin is, if it's on the lower end, if you're less than 50% gross margin, actually the amount of client base you would lose through increasing your prices is likely to be less than the profit benefit you would get. If you're interested in understanding that a bit more, please just drop me a 1-liner email at the end of this session. Ask me for the price increase and discount grids, and I'll show you exactly how that works, because it's quite surprising. As a simple example of that, if you've got a business that achieves a 30% gross margin and you apply a 10% discount in order to drive more business through the door, you actually need to do 50% more sales volume to achieve the same profit outcome. So a 10% discount requires 50% uplift in client to actually justify it. And that's something most people don't think. They think it's 10% discount, I need to do 10% more. There are some mathematical reasons as to why that is. If you want to know them, please ask me for those grids. I'll happily share them with you. Okay, so the first section on the left is all about increasing your order volume and the values associated so that actually you do more and generate the outcome from that. The second area is simply to look at the margins, the efficiency really of what you're doing. And one way of doing that is by improving your focus as a business owner. So taking a look at actually what is our sales mix? What are we selling that carries a very high margin or a very high pound value per sale? And what actually is there that takes a lot of time and doesn't generate much money and actually the margins are poor? It's very easy when you aren't focused on this to end up doing a lot of business for low margin. To give you an example of this, I used to work with a security company that turned over £12 million. And the problem was that the margins they achieved on man guarding were less than 2%. So doing a huge amount of volume and a massive amount of risk, a huge amount of employees, but really not taking much take home. By contrast, they had a division that actually installed security systems and control centres for large shopping centres, ports, places like that. And that business, whilst it only turned over £500,000, it achieved 45% margin on that service. And therefore it actually made more money or more profit as a business through that division than through the man guarding side. So when we were working together, we were very much focused on building up the installation side of the business because it was fundamentally more profitable. And unless you're looking at those numbers or you understand them well, it's very easy to do a lot of work for very little. And maybe some of you are sitting there saying, yeah, been there, done that, or maybe experiencing right now. The final elements under this 9-point model here is very simply the service costs. So these are your variable costs, your cost of goods sold, basically the costs that are associated with delivering the product or service, and looking at the efficiency. This can be things like rerouting delivery drivers, getting better machinery to print more items at a lower cost per unit. It can be, for example, in Growth by Design, Henry and I at the moment have been looking at where do we repeat work that actually is unnecessary? Where is there a fundamental base plate to any task we're doing that actually, why not start at 0.5 rather than 0.1 every time? And we found some really exciting opportunities within our company to boost up both the volume and nicheness of what we're doing, but also to improve the profit per hour, and all the while actually making it less expensive for a customer and faster to deliver for them. So it's not always just about pushing price up. Actually, in this case, we can have a win-win-win going across for that. The final point is overheads. Now, the reason I point this out is when COVID first arrived, a lot of accountants and bookkeepers very simply said to their clients, okay, things are getting a bit tougher. The first thing you need to do is go through line item by line item and trim the costs, which is fair advice, but it isn't necessarily brilliant advice. Because if you cut out the things that are actually making the money you were making, that's problematic. So if you trim out the marketing, the sales, if you get rid of the staff member that actually has all the knowledge, whatever it is, if you cut the wrong thing, you cut off your nose to spite your face. So those are the 9 profit levers. And the idea of these is that if you put a strategy around each one of these in turn as part of your marketing plan, you're going to influence the amount of profit on the bottom end. Now, I don't know about you, but nearly every business plan I've looked at doesn't actually explain that. It simply says, how are you going to market? Who's your customer? What are you going to be providing? It doesn't tell you actually how to make profit. And so if you restructure your business plan to actually include these elements, it's more likely to deliver an outcome and your forecast will be more realistic because of that. So the final part I want to run through with you today in terms of education is how these levers actually drive profit. Now, on the left-hand side, you've basically got a flow of how numbers run through a business. So the number of lead contacts times by the marketing conversion will give you the number of inquiries. The number of inquiries you have times by the efficiency of your sales conversion as a percentage will give you the number of clients that you end up with. The number of clients you have multiplied by how much they spend on each average transaction, multiplied by the number of transactions they're actually going to do during a period will give you the turnover for that year or whatever it's going to be, times by the margin that you achieve actually on the delivery of that service or product, gives you your gross profit, minus the overheads gives you the EBITDA, or the amount of distributable income prior to tax, depreciation, amortization. Here's an example of what it looks like in £1 million business. So in this example, I've put 2,000 leads are generated through whatever marketing mix the person is choosing to undertake. It's efficient enough that 1 out of every 20 contacts actually makes an inquiry. Out of every inquiry, 1 out of 2 decides they're actually going to buy and become a customer. Those 50 customers on average spend £5,000 each time, and during that year will on average spend it 4 times. They'll do 4 transactions of that, £1 million resulting in turnover. The costs allow a 30% gross margin to be achieved, so it makes £300,000, from which this company takes £200,000 to run in terms of overheads, so it allows £100,000 prior to tax, and then the remainder goes on to the shareholders for that company. So whatever the start metrics are for your company, yours will, I appreciate, be different to this. They may be bigger, they may be smaller, it doesn't matter. It's simple mathematics that I'm going to be showing you, which is, if you put a strategy together for each of these different areas that you're looking at, and in this case, I've just picked 6 of the areas, and I say normally I'm going to try and increase these 3 by 10% and these by 5%. That's what I believe the impact of the strategy I've come up with will be. The outcomes are compounded. So where in here you've got 20% of improvement, it's actually 21% increase in growth. Where you've now got 30%, is now 33%. And you can see that coming all the way through. These relatively small adjustments that you're making actually make really substantial differences. Take a look at the turnover going from 1 million to 1.46. That's 46.74% up for 3 10% and 2 5% adjustments. You then do 5% better actually in terms of your efficiency costs, the variable costs, or the cost of goods sold. What happens is actually you've increased the gross profit from 300 to 462,000, i.e. 54% improvement. And what I've done is in here just demonstrate a reality, which is when you grow a company, there's likely to be some additional costs to deliver that. In this case, I said they'll need 2 £30,000 staff members additional to what they've got. They're not going to need any new machinery or buildings or anything else like that. That's the simple impact for this. And in this case, the earnings have gone up by more than 100%, which for any company owner is going to be attractive, I would suspect. So that's how it works, but every business is unique. And the point I want to make is that if you recognize the principle, but you don't yet see exactly how that's going to work inside your company, I'd love to come and have a sit down with you and talk that through, whether it's on Zoom or in person, COVID restrictions allowing. And the way I look at that is to call it a 90-minute pit stop. It's completely free, and it's my offer for you all today. If you'd like to have one of those meetings with me and talk through how you can grow the profit in your company, very simply, we'll take a look at what's going well, what isn't, and what things you haven't looked at yet. We'll identify actually ways for you to actually assess how you're doing and what the options are. And then very simply, I'll sit there with you and I'll share recommendations and advice on how you can improve your results. And one point on this is lots of coaches will then very simply go into a sales pitch. I absolutely promise you that unless you ask me, I won't tell you how coaching can help you or how much it costs or anything like that. This is a genuine offer to do all of these 3 parts here with no caveats at all. And I promise you, I'll only explain my services if you ask, which I hope comes across as a very fair offer. If you'd like to take me up on that, my details are now on the screen. I'll just give you a moment to make a note of that, and then I will hand over to Henry, who's our next speaker.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thanks, Tim, for handing over. So I'm going to be talking to you about how to market more efficiently. So to kick things off, let me introduce myself. I'm Henry Laker. I'm the Managing Director of Growth by Design. I've been running marketing businesses for over 25 years now. I know it's unbelievable looking at my boyish good looks, but nevertheless true. Growth by Design was formed in 2017, and in 2018 we won the Best New Business Award for the entire Gatwick Diamond area, which I think is just past Croydon all the way down to the coast. I'm the director of 2 different marketing agencies, Growth by Design, which is based just outside of Haywards Heath, where we have a team of 9, and MJS Media, which is based in Hastings, where we have a team of 7. And as Tim mentioned earlier, working with Tim, I co-authored our book, Growing by Design, which is our model for efficient, successful marketing for small to medium-sized businesses. So, to kick things off, what I'm going to be talking about for you to focus on the efficiency of the marketing for your business today is I've decided to just break things down into 3 different phases of marketing. So just to explain what those are, the first phase is primary marketing. Now, primary marketing is to brand new customers, first-time customers, people that haven't bought from you before and likely in most cases have never heard of you before. It's also, incidentally, the area that the majority of businesses tend to focus most of their marketing efforts. Now, it has a place and absolutely it should be done, but actually it is also the hardest work in terms of marketing and one of the most expensive forms of marketing. The second phase of marketing is secondary marketing. And this is to your existing customer base. This is the people that you're already working with and what you're doing to maximize the lifetime value of those customers so that they buy from you for as long as possible and as much as possible. And the third phase is tertiary marketing. This is introductions. This might be opportunities introduced from strategic alliance partners. Equally, it might be, and this is the real sweet spot, when the opportunities are introduced from your clients. Now, the interesting thing with the tertiary marketing is it's actually largely the same type of audience that comes from primary marketing, but the different, i.e. brand new customers, the difference is that it is much lower cost and very often it doesn't actually have a cost to it in terms of gaining those opportunities. It's also far less likely that you'll be selling on price, and you've got a much higher conversion rate because anybody that's coming to you by way of an introduction from somebody that they already know and like and trust brings with it the confidence of the introducer. So let's look at each of these phases in turn. So the first one, phase 1, which is the primary marketing. The images that I've got here, we've got lots of little gray faces, and one bright yellow one. Now, what might I be trying to get at here? Basically, the point that I'm trying to make is targeting. Now, we could try to reach out and attract everyone, all of the audience, but it's a little bit like using thousands of bullets with a machine gun. What we actually want to use is a sniper rifle and 1 bullet. Well, obviously what we don't want to do is to shoot any of our prospects. That's not generally the best way to start a relationship and gain a first sale, but you get my point. By targeting a specific type of an audience, it's a much, much more effective way of marketing. So in terms of targeting, what we want to do, and to give you an example of this, technically, I could help virtually any type of business with their marketing. But if I were to refine that down into a specific sector or industry, for example, I might be wanting to refine that down to trades companies, or I might even want to further refine that down to the niche of plumbing and heating businesses within trades companies. I want to identify the most common motives for that specific audience. I then also want to refine down the services that I have that are going to be of most interest to that specific audience type, make it as niche as I possibly can, and to identify the right types of approach to be able to connect with that specific audience. So rather than trying a one-size-fits-all marketing approach, for really efficient marketing, what we're talking about here is actually looking at what can be done to refine things down to just a section of that audience and finding what the right direct approach might be. It may be utilizing a purchased database just for that specific audience type. It might be building up audiences via channels like LinkedIn, for example, so that we're just refining it down to a specific audience alone. Then we come on to the brand, and what a lot of businesses think of when they talk about brand is perhaps a logo or the colors used, or perhaps the style of typography. But a brand in truth is far, far more than that. What it actually is is what you're saying and who you're saying it to. And most specifically, what we're talking about here in terms of niching it down to a specific section of that audience is how can we establish the company proposition for a company as a whole, but particularly for that audience type. Also, what have we done to develop the proposition for the service or product that we have, again, that's relative to that particular type of audience that we're trying to talk to? And what can our audience expect from the relationship that they will have from us in terms of the people that they're going to be working with and the type of relationship they can expect from working with us? How well is that communicated in the brand message that you're putting out there? Then findability is an extremely important point. So keeping in mind that what we don't want to do is to use a machine gun or something perhaps slightly less aggressive. What we want to do is be far more laser focused. Findability, one of the really powerful tools for this is actually refining your SEO strategy so that it is targeting that specific audience. So rather than trying to win with every single person out there, trying to gain the attention of everybody on the internet, what we're looking at here is actually utilizing an SEO strategy that targets just a section of that audience. Then regular content that is relevant to that audience and its placement in a place where they're going to find it. If your audience type, for example, let's say it was sole trader plumbing and heating companies, for example, there's no point in your content being put on LinkedIn if they spend their time on Facebook. So it's making sure that you've got regular content, relevant to the audience, and placed in a place where they can find it. Coming on to the next phase, which is the secondary phase of marketing to your existing audience type. Down at the bottom, you'll see an image there, a cradle to grave image. Now, in reality, there's probably not many of us that will gain a client from the point of their birth all the way through to the point of their death, although I'm sure there will be some cases. But my point here is that we retain them for the longest period of time that we possibly can. Now, to do this, we want to map out the client journey for them and for us, what they can expect during their journey of working with us, right from the initial point of that first initial engagement, but then ongoing, what happens after that? So over a period of time, we want to grow their understanding of the range of services and products that we have. We want to increase the frequency that they buy those services and the volume in which they buy those services. So we want them to be buying as much as possible, as regularly as possible, and is in the highest numbers that they possibly can. And during the time that they're with us, we want to retain those clients for the maximum amount of time, and during that time, fulfill as many needs as we possibly can, so that they have the best value to us as a client, but also at the same time, we have the most value to them as a supplier, because we've solved as many things all under one roof as we can for them. Now, on that point, communication is key. Communication within your secondary phase of marketing is very, very important past the first sale. Much can happen beyond the first sale. So between the point that somebody's made a first-time purchase to the point where they are now ready to buy again, there are other things that could come into play to influence if you haven't communicated. Their colleagues might influence who perhaps they purchase from the next time. They could, or actually, rather than could, they 100% definitely will be communicated to by your competition. So it's really, really crucial that there's ongoing communication going on beyond that first sale, so that you are promoting your, you being front of mind for them, so that when the time is right, you are the choice again and again and again. During that process, it's not just communicating about your services or about a sale. It's actually communications that go beyond just the transaction, that build the relationship. So when you find information that you think might be helpful to your clients, sharing that information. Anything that you can do to build that relationship and turn, I think the best way I could explain it is looking at ways to turn your customers into more members rather than customers. That's what really cements that relationship for the long term. During this process of communication, education is really important, educating them on what you can do to be helping them, but also at the same time, educating yourself about them, about their company, about their people as they grow and evolve and develop. What is their vision? Where are they going as a business? So much is required to build a relationship that is beyond just selling a product. What are you doing to develop that relationship, develop the trust further and further? And then I guess the final point, and this is, has a strong part to play across the board in all of the different types of marketing, particularly for efficiency, is the value of having a good, strong CRM, a customer relationship management tool, to avoid wasting opportunity like a leaking sieve, and in many ways automate that communication process. I won't go into more detail now because we've got the benefit today of one of our speakers is Nick Bird, who is a Zoho CRM specialist. So he'll talk to you in more detail, but very, very important for efficient marketing to have a good, strong CRM solution in place. The third and final phase is the tertiary marketing. Now, we've all heard the phrase facts tell, stories sell, but in reality, many businesses don't actually utilize that in their business. So just to drill this down, what I mean by this, the facts tell element is the benefits and features that you might be sharing with your audience about the services and products that you provide. Now that's great, and that message does need to be shared, but the stories that can be shared from the people that are using the benefits and features that you're providing, how that's working successfully for them, when you put that in combination with the benefits and features, it becomes much, much more powerful. So we want to make sure that we've researched the right environments to be able to share this information. And then we want to make sure that we're leveraging the influence of referencing from our customers that are experiencing positive results from what we're doing for them. We want to use that as a powerful conversion tool to really make it as efficient as we possibly can. Now, on the point of capture and promotion, many of us gain testimonies from our clients, and that's great. But rather than it just being a reactive thing, what we want to have in place for really efficient marketing, particularly in the tertiary level or tertiary phase of marketing, is a process in place to capture and control the type of stories that we can put out there. What I mean by controlling is that if we receive a testimony from a client saying, yeah, we're really happy with your service, thank you very much, you've looked after us really well and we highly recommend you. Well, that's nice, it makes us feel all warm and fuzzy, but it doesn't actually answer any of the unasked questions that your prospects have. If there are points of procrastination that your prospects are likely to have, or perhaps areas where areas of doubt, something that might stop somebody from buying from you, we'd love to draw that out in one of those success stories. And actually having a process in place where we ask our clients specific questions that we can then gain a testimony that will share those experiences, make it much more powerful. So we want to gain evidence that's for the right case. So coming back to niche audiences, if we can gain success stories that will answer the questions that our prospects have in their mind, and wherever possible will be relevant to your products and services and relevant to the audience you're trying to connect, it becomes very powerful. We also want to make sure that we identify the most powerful tools to be used for sharing that information and the right platform in which to show it. whether it's video, whether it's email, whether it's web pages, whatever tool that you're providing, want to make sure that we've got the right tools for the right job used in the right environments. And then finally, alliances. Strategic alliances, really, really important within the introducer, people introducing opportunities to you. So what's in place to develop those relationships and the trust of those alliance partners so they have more confidence in referring you, but also creating tools that makes it easy, enables them to be able to refer you. How easy are you making it for your alliance partners and for your clients to be able to refer you on to others? Really, really important part. So hopefully in just that short 15 minutes, I've just opened your eyes a little bit beyond just concentrating on brand new leads, which are of course important, but hopefully I've opened your eyes to the fact that there are different types of marketing, and to gain the most efficient results, they need to be looked at separately. Now, if you want to boost the results that you're getting within your marketing, I'd love to help you beyond just the value that I've provided with just a short 15 minutes. And to do that, I'd like to offer you a complimentary marketing strategy session or a website review where I'll take the principles that I've shared quickly in 15 minutes this morning and actually make them bespoke and fit to your business, what you could be doing to utilize some of these strategies moving forward. If you'd like to take advantage, just give me a call on the number that's shown up on screen, drop me an email. I will follow up with an email as well. I'll give you a moment just to make a note of that. And then I will hand over to our next speaker, which is Jay from SEBS.
So, my name is Jay Wordsworth. I'm from South East Business Systems, and I've been IT director here for about 4 years, and I've worked for the company for the last 11 years. The company was founded in the 1980s, so this year we're 40 years old. I started working in IT in 2004, and previously to that, I was in the music industry, and outside of IT, I like to do CrossFit. So I do a lot of high-intensity exercise to de-stress and keep off those pounds from lockdown. Right, so today we're going to look at efficient IT for distant teams, call it remote working, and first of all, we're going to look at the situation today, where we're at, and what we're doing. And then we're going to move on to some common issues. So just sort of generally look at some of the issues that we're facing, some things that we've seen and have been pointed out by our customer base. And ultimately, we're going to go on to some solutions and recommendations to some of those issues mentioned. So, first things first, working at a distance. A couple of facts for you. Before COVID-19 pandemic and perhaps where we are today, 5% of the workforce may have worked from home. But by April, you're looking at potentially half of adults' employment or remote working. And just this week, the IOD mentioned that a large percentage of businesses will be keeping that increased working after coronavirus. So all of you have got home offices and workstations, I suspect. Some of you are on the kitchen table, some of you in a study, and I suspect some of you, like I have seen on pop-up ironing boards. We see laptops just stuck on an ironing board, which can quickly be tucked away at the end of the day. So, online tools. We've massively increased our use of online tools since the beginning of March. The way we hold meetings has changed. Currently, it's much safer to hold a video conference. Look at Zoom. I mean, we're using Zoom now. So in January, I believe UK-based, potentially 650,000 users. By April, you're looking at about 13 million users and continue to do so. I think Zoom pitched, they reckon about 300 million meeting participants in a day. And obviously, we've got other providers as well. We've got Microsoft Teams and other third parties. So, connection to data, very important. You know, when accessing data now, users out there, we're faced with so many new technologies, so many new acronyms, terminal servers, remote desktops, VPNs. How do we connect to our data in this new distance world? And I mean, look at management as well. Management has changed. regular team meetings, one-to-ones, performance reviews, they're all held at a distance now, whether it be like a video call or voice over IP systems. It's massively changed. Supervision, trust. So looking at trust, there's some real positives here though. So we're seeing a culture now of trust taking over control. So people are learning to work now with much, much less oversight. But we can also manage this and look at this with software management as well. So, common issues. Some of the things that we're seeing today. Communication security is a massive. There are many issues, but we're just going to stick with communication security. So, barriers to communication, internet connectivity and machine reliability. So, you're faced with working from home, and we're often seeing internet connectivity issues, so users relying on their home internet to connect into the office. Now, their home internet is not always the most reliable. You're facing contention issues, so you're contending with potentially all the people on your street or all the people connecting to your local exchange. Your kids or other people potentially at home could well be using the bandwidth as well. My kids, I had a few issues with my kids online during this. So some of the internet connectivity and the ability for you to work would need to be addressed. Machine reliability. So, you're looking at some circumstances relying on your own personal laptop or machine to do the work that you once did in an office. So, an example, a CAD engineer trying to use an underpowered laptop at home. Individual IT skills. So, IT skills were massively challenged or are being challenged at the moment. So, users have been taken out of their office comfort zone. We've had a user base, many of them were told, take your PCs home, set it up at home. And, the use of IT support companies like us was, it was massive because we were able to walk the individuals through these setup. And, we're looking at many different operating systems from Windows, Apple, and all their various different flavors. Security risks, very important. Risks of the home system. So, is your PC secure? Is your machine going to bring menace into the corporate network? Can your system infect the corporate network? Well, yes, it can. We had a case very early on where a user was able to connect in from their home PC into their customer site and infected their data. So yes, this can be done. GDPR and access to data. Who can see your PC at home? Who is there? Who can hear what you're saying? Can someone in your household? Can someone accidentally delete data? You'll be amazed how many cats walk over keyboards, and start dialing keys in. It's incredible. So how safe is that data? And management and teamwork challenges. So we're looking at perhaps team unity. So once you're taken out of this environment and then placed in your remote location, things like loneliness. I mean, this has been one of the common complaints about remote working. Employees miss that sort of informal social interaction in the office space, and lack of face-to-face supervision. So managers and their employees were very concerned about face-to-face interaction, and supervisors tend to worry that maybe their teams aren't working as efficiently. Now the complete opposite, working too much. And we get reports of this, a lot of our remote customers that we support, a lot of them say that they feel like they're often working too much. You can overwork, a diminished work-life balance because you're not leaving your house, going into the office, and people are finding it hard to switch off at the end of the day. So these are some of the common issues. Now I'm just going to go through some solutions and recommendations. So the ideal workstation. We found really that a key factor has been portability and agility of the end user. We're seeing users that are either working remotely or working on a rotation basis. So, teams are being split and people are going in or off on odd days or whatever day they've been chosen. So we found a simple swap out is a laptop. So this gives the user a transition, a speedy transition to move from home office to work office and back. So we found that swapping out the physical fixed workstations in these situations works out very well. So portability of that equipment. The workstation, it's not So for some, and I know talking to Tim the other day, it's not as easy as just pulling out your workstation and taking it home. You know, some people have got some serious bits of kit. You know, they're often large computers with multi-monitor setups. So we've been able to provide the other type of connection where we bring that connection to the end user from the office. So they can connect from their home device and just work and use that workhorse as if they were in that workspace. So, efficient systems and tools, there are many, so I'm only going to cover a few today because there are many we can cover. So, first of all, VoIP. So this is something that we've seen grow massively over the last few months. So VoIP, I expect some of you know that it's voice over IP. It's a new form of telephony using internet for phone calls rather than landlines and mobile phones. And there's a great saving to business. You're looking at lower call costs, cheaper ownership of equipment, and the added features that come with a voice over IP telephone system. So, you know, you're looking at video conferencing, instant messaging. So, I mean, we've mobilized many customers by swapping out older phone systems and replacing them with this technology. And users can call from a VoIP telephone, or they can install software on their PC, their Mac, iPhone, iPad, and Android mobile, but they can still give the appearance of calling from the office number. Secure connection to data. Okay, this is the biggie. So how do you, from your location, your remote location, connect to your data? So remote desktop. This is probably the biggest one that we've looked at with our customer base. So there's two types. So end users, multiple users can connect to a single server in that workplace, which can be managed as a singular device, and all those users connect to that single entity. The other option is a one-to-one remote desktop, where we actually connect that user, like I mentioned earlier, to the workstation. So we take your home device and we allow that to connect to the PC. So you'll see a window on that home device and work that PC, like I said, as if you're in the office. VPNs, I'm sure a lot of you have used VPNs over the years, so the virtual private network. This allows you to access the resources at that location securely, but it's just for opening file data. I wouldn't recommend databases, etc. So if you need to access your Word, your Excel, you know, your spreadsheets or your presentation, you can open these up over the VPN. You don't need a server to connect to, a remote desktop server to connect to. So yeah, think of it really as a rather long network cable from your home PC into that local area network. File and sync sharing. So file and sync sharing you've all heard of. You're looking at OneDrive, you're looking at Dropbox, OneCloud, which is one of our solutions that we provide. And that really just allows you to work on documents and data on your device. And once you save that, it will be synchronized to a centralized location, either based in the cloud or based syncing at your server in the remote office. And, oh, hello, here we go, bit of an IT hiccup here. Right, okay, so managing remote staff and protecting the remote staff. So things that can be put in place. I mean, there's two things to look at with the management. You know, you've got the software side of it, and there's the human side to it as well. So you know, we can put on, or IT companies can put on, remote management and monitoring agents. So your external staff, where they're working, you can see that the computer they're working on is on. It's being worked on, that it's safe, that the software on it is secure, so you can audit this device. It can be remote supported, software can be deployed to it, and all in all, it's great for sort of auditing and just seeing what you have in your footprint to make your staff and your organisation safe and secure. But I suppose from a management perspective as well, and looking at protecting remote staff, there's a rules of engagement. So I think everyone needs to establish rules of engagement when you're working remotely. I think remote work, it becomes more efficient and satisfying when managers just set expectations. So let's say, timings of communication. So let's have a video conferencing, a daily check-in, video conferencing, and any other stuff, we're going to use instant messaging. So real-time dialogue, we're going to use instant messaging. And, don't forget about the fun factor. I know that, the social interaction. So, that people are still doing virtual quizzes and virtual pizza parties, etc. Right. Another form of protecting staff and protecting your organisation. Firewalls. So we're talking here, we're looking at a hardware firewall. So we've had to put a fair few of these in during the last few months. This physical device, it's installed at your organisation, and it protects the office data and protects the data that is potentially being transmitted between the remote site, be it the remote worker, and the server on site. And it's, you decide if there is certain traffic you want to allow. Basically, traffic will not flow through it unless you decide what you want to flow through that device. And there's client software that can sit on the client end, which will adhere to the policies on the firewall. So another important thing to look at is the firewall will also secure your virtual private networks. So it will use something called secure socket layer and make that private connection between your home network and your office network extremely secure. A couple of other things I haven't mentioned, which in the list here are disaster recovery. Don't forget about disaster recovery in these times. There's many things that we're having to think about, and just because users potentially working more remotely and there's not as many people in the office, are there people changing your on-site backup drives if you're using it? Think of Office 365 as well. And this is something to mention, and this crops up quite a lot, is, Microsoft 365, they focus on uptime, but not necessarily data protection. So there are protection agents that will work with Office 365 to protect you and back up all your company's emails, your online data, be it SharePoint or OneDrive. So there are additional agents which will work with 365 to give you the ability to hold that data for longer if it falls out of the remit of the 365 protection. And just finally, also offsite backups. So we generally tend to, with all our organisations that we look after, we're putting an offsite backup. So we really like to protect that site. It's an encrypted offsite backup, continuous data protection, which allows full recovery of the server within a sensible time frame. So today's offer, I'd like to offer a review of your working strategy and RT related structure. It's going to be free, so we will come into your site for free. Get to know you, I really believe the organics of the site is important. There's no one size fits all of this. So we like to get to know you, do a survey potentially if you'd like us to look into it, make some recommendations, and just give you some expert opinions and ideas and guidance on corrective action. So there's my details there. So that's Jay, email address and telephone number, option 1, and ask for Jay, and someone will put you through to me. And I'll just let you take those down, and then I'm going to be handing over to Nick. So I'm just going to stop sharing, and let's just hand over to Nick.
So my company is Successful CRM, run it for about 5 years. I won't go into my background because you can see that on LinkedIn. What I'm going to look at today is the fact that you are already doing CRM. And I'll explain that. I'll talk about the principles of good CRM and pick up some of the things that Tim and Henry and Jay have said. I'm going to look at resilience and value and how systems help. So those are quite big topics. So bear with me on those, and I'm going to try and get through those as quickly as possible for you. And I just need to get my blooming system to work. So bear with me, please. Oh dear. Sorry, you bear with me. I just need to get. Sorry about that, slight glitch. Okay, so the first thing to say is there's a difference between CRM and a CRM. Everybody does CRM, which is customer relationship management, and some people use a CRM system to help them to do that. And that makes sense, because when you think about it, you don't have a business if you don't have clients, and the value of your business is the value of your relationships with those clients. So it makes sense to manage them. So the question really isn't whether you need a CRM, but whether you're doing CRM well or badly. And that's what I'm going to talk about and raise some questions with you about. It's not about your CRM system and whether you need a CRM system or how a CRM system works, but how you do CRM at the moment. And when you think about it, there's 4 principles that you need to that you need to follow in order to have effective management of your client relationships. Now, the first one of those is you need to know more about your clients and prospects than your competitors. And when we were talking, Henry was talking about doing primary marketing. He was talking about how you need to target what you're doing, and part of that that targeting is understanding where your existing clients are coming from and who your most profitable and least profitable clients are, because you want to target your marketing activity on getting the profitable clients rather than the less profitable clients. And one of the other reasons that you want to know more about your clients and prospects as your competitors and have competitive advantage in what you know is because you want to treat them as individuals. And it's important to treat them as individuals at scale. And that's why you sometimes use systems like CRM systems and also marketing automation, so that you can talk to them as individuals. And one of the reasons Henry was talking about communications, and I think he pulled this point out, and because one of the important things about communications, it's not just about what you say to your clients or what you say to your prospects, it's also about truly hearing what they are telling you. So it's important to make it easy for them to tell you what they want, and to manage those channels of communication. And that's very important when you are managing your client relationships, to hear what they're saying, whether that's coming from social media, from email, etc. And one of the reasons that you want to hear what they're telling you is because you want to know exactly what they want. And if you know exactly what they want, you can build powerful business propositions which are related to them. And I'll explain a little bit more about that as we go on. So these are the 6 questions that I think you need to ask when you're thinking about managing your client relationships. Does what you know now in your business give you a competitive advantage? I mean, do you actually know more about your clients than your competitors could find out very quickly by going on the web or doing a search? Do you know more about your prospects than your competitors can find out? Secondly, how are you using that information? How are you using that information to get your maximum share of client? Now, Henry and Tim brought this up. What's very important about your business and determines the value of your business is lifetime value. And that's how much you are selling to your existing clients, just as much as it is about finding new ones, perhaps more so. So how are you actually using the information you know about your clients to increase your share of their wallet? And is what you know about your clients telling you exactly what they want? And that's about treating them as individuals. But how are you using the information you're capturing, and what information are you capturing about your clients that will tell you exactly what they want? And how do you use that information, if you are capturing that, to tailor unbeatable business propositions, which puts you at an advantage against your competitors and retains that client long term? And as I was indicating before, who are your most and least profitable clients? Very few companies can tell you that. Many companies that I work with can tell you who spends the most, but who are your most profitable clients? And that speaks to Tim's point about the profit levers that he was talking about. And how do you use what you know to get more of these profitable clients? So in this next slide, I'm very briefly going to go through this. It's about how you build a strategy, and Tim's talked about building strategies, and some of the threats that you face as business. And one of those threats is that in the modern world, because of the internet, customers have much more bargaining power because they can find other companies just like you at a mouse click. So that's one of the reasons that building share of client rather than concentrating on share of market is so important. And that's central to what customer relationship management is about, building those relationships and that share of the client's wallet. It's also, you're also, with the internet, clients have got much more substitutes open to them, so they can go and find alternatives to the sorts of services that you're offering. But one of the defenses you've got against that is by really clearly hearing what they are saying and giving them exactly what they want. Because the more you can give them exactly what they want, the fewer alternatives there are that they can find on the internet. And markets themselves are becoming very, very competitive. And so there's many more new entrants coming into the market, through lower barriers to entry due to the internet and the way we do things now. So it's increasingly important to build these unbeatable business propositions which apply specifically to that to each client. So modern technology helps you. I'm not going to go through every bit of this slide because it would just take too long. But modern technology helps you to manage your client relationships. But that's not just a client relationship system. It's how it also integrates with all the other systems that you're currently using. So, it helps you to look at your whole client journey, which is what Henry was talking about. It helps you to track your KPIs and do analytics by integrating with business intelligence tools, for example. So it helps you to do some of the things that Tim was talking about. And you improve the communications and how people talk to you by capturing things, by integrating your CRM, say, with your website, with social media or your telecoms, as Jay was talking about in terms of your VoIP communications and so on. And also integrating it across the whole client lifecycle through things like inventory and finance and things like that can also help you to build these unbeatable propositions, which might not just be about your products, they might be about the services that you offer. And lastly, I'm going to talk about very briefly these intelligence business analytics, looking at dashboards, which gives you your position within your sales performance, which Tim was talking about, to keep you on target. And lastly, you've also got automated marketing platforms these days, which integrate with the CRM, so that you can design these client journeys that Henry was talking about, and get all of the systems working together. So that's hopefully that's done it within a very brief time. If you want to find out more about CRM as customer relationship management, as well as customer relationship management systems, then you can go to my website and I share a number of resources which I think you'll find useful. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen.